Welcome in, Commanders fans. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and this is the Commanders Report. On today's show, I'm going to be breaking down 4 trade targets for your Washington Commanders, some players that Washington can add to the roster here. We talked a lot about Chase Young potentially being traded out of Washington. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the guys the Commanders can target to bring in. Been looking forward to this video for a while, guys. Can't wait to share with you my list. But first, you tell me, should the Washington Commanders make another splash move here in the offseason before the start of training camp and the 2023 NFL season? Give me a hell yes or a hell no in the comments section. Should the Commanders make another move? Number 1 on my list of trade targets. I'll be a little bit briefer on this one because I've talked about Zach Ertz a ton on this show, but I definitely think he's the number 1 guy on my list because the Commanders, let's just say their tight end situation isn't all that great right now with Logan Thomas being their number 1 guy, and Zach Ertz is somebody that's a bit more dynamic, right? Logan Thomas is not much of an athlete. You know, he's a former quarterback, and he looks like a former quarterback at times playing the tight end position. Zach Ertz is 32 years old, so he's getting up there in age, but I've seen every single snap that he took in 2022. This guy can still move. He's still a really good route runner. He's still a great red zone threat, and most of it is, frankly, the quarterback play that he's had to deal with over the last couple of years, and I still think that with a competent quarterback like Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett, he can definitely be a good piece in this tight end room, and I definitely think he's better than Logan Thomas at this point. You kind of hope Cole Turner or one of these other guys can kind of ascend to be that receiving threat in new offensive coordinator Eric Biennemy's offense this year, but I definitely think Zach Ertz would be the best option at this point, and I don't think he'd be that expensive. I think that I would probably offer the Arizona Cardinals a 7th-round pick, kind of float that out there and see how that goes, see what they want in return for a guy like Zach Ertz, because they're trying to accrue as much draft capital as possible. They're not going to be winning this year. They know it. They're rebuilding for the future, and I'd be willing to give up as much as a 5th rounder. I'd consider a 5th round pick, but anything higher than that, you know, Ertz is 32. You're only going to have him for a couple of years. I don't think I'm giving up anything more than a 5th round pick to bring Zach Ertz to the nation's capital, but I definitely think Eric Bienemy could open up the playbook a bit more if he had his receiving threat there at the tight end position. Number 2 on my list, Makai Becton, kind of the forgotten man in the 2020 NFL draft class, where in the first year that he was in New York, he actually played really well at left tackle. He was the 31st highest graded tackle in football, according to Pro Football Focus grading, which isn't terrible for a rookie. And he looked like he had all the upside in the world, but then he suffered 2 pretty major injuries over the last 2 seasons. And now, you know, his future is definitely looking more bleak. And the New York Giants, or the Jets, I should say, have really built their offensive line over the last couple of years as well. They could definitely afford to send Makai Becton elsewhere if they wanted to. And the reason why the Commanders would consider bringing in Makai Becton is to bring in competition for Charles Leno Jr., who signed Andrew Wiley to be your right tackle for this season. You're paying him quite a bit of money, so you're going to be playing him there. But with Charles Leno, the biggest disappointment of this offseason for the Commanders, in my opinion, was not bringing in somebody to kind of put a fire under Charles's ass this offseason to kind of prove that he deserves to be the left tackle of this team. And Makai Becton is somebody that is really, really athletic. He's got all the tools that you look for. He's everything that Charles Leno is not. Leno's got the more technical refinement to his game, although he can look really silly at times against elite pass rushers. And then Makai Becton has all the tools in the world. He's got all the athleticism that you look for, all the size. He's played pretty decently in his last healthy season. So if you bring him here into Washington, you still have Charles Leno Jr. if Makai Becton doesn't work out. And because of all these factors, I would be willing to give up a late day 3 pick here, a 6th or 7th rounder. And this is probably what it would look like. It'd probably be sending the Jets a 6th round pick in return for Makai Becton. Would the Jets take that deal? I'm not too sure. They might want maybe an early day 3 pick in exchange for the former 1st rounder, but that's as far as I'm willing to go as far as I'm concerned. But let me know what you guys think. Would you accept this trade if you were Commanders GM Martin Mayhew, a 6th rounder for left tackle Makai Becton? Type A if you would accept it, or type D if you're going to decline it. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So here's what's going to happen. YouTube's going to throw an ad break your way here in just a few seconds. Take advantage of that time by answering today's question. Next up on my list of trade targets here, guard Cesar Ruiz. Now, former first-round pick out of Michigan here, currently plays with the New Orleans Saints, hasn't ever really graded fantastically for New Orleans, a 56.6 PFF grade last year, which isn't fantastic. It's about league average. But man, the Saints did not pick up his fifth-year option this offseason, so they're clearly willing to see him go elsewhere. And he's a former first-round pick, so he's still very athletic. He still has room to grow, in my opinion. And we know that the Washington Commanders could really use somebody on the interior of the offensive line. Right now, you got Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles battling it out for the left guard spot. Neither of those guys are even close to proven at the National Football League level. Cesar Ruiz has played quite a bit in this league already, and he's somebody that's a first-round caliber kind of guy with the athleticism that he brings to the table. Now, he's played right guard throughout his career, but I think he could make that transition over to the left side if he were traded here to Washington. And because of the pedigree, because of all these things, all these variables coming together with the low-value position, all these different things, the most I'd offer is a fifth-round pick, and that might even be pushing it. All right, it might be a sixth or a seventh rounder. If New Orleans is willing to get rid of Cesar Ruiz, I would be willing to give up something closer to a later day 3 pick there. The most I'd go is a fifth rounder for the former first-round pick out of Michigan. So now, if you made it this far into the video, that means that we must be doing something right here at the Commanders Report. And if you love the Washington Commanders and you want wall-to-wall coverage on the Commanders 24/7, 365, that's what we have for you here on the Commanders Report. We got news and rumors coverage. We're going to have a couple, hopefully some live watch parties during some primetime games for the Commanders this year. Don't miss a moment here. Click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you always get notified when we put out our free videos here on YouTube. And finally, here on my list, inside linebacker Patrick Queen, right now with the Baltimore Ravens, had his best season of his career last year by far, a 70.0 PFF grade, which was good for 31st in the National Football League last year. So he kind of, before he was one of the lowest graded guys in the league, really bad in pass coverage. The only thing he could really do well is blitz. And now last year he incorporated the pass coverage element to his game, which is something that you really like. So he's a really good blitzer mixed with the fact that he's actually really good in coverage now, which is something that the Commanders definitely need. Like right now, I would say that the Commanders inside linebacker room, it's not going to make or break the season. Like Jamin Davis and Cody Barton are okay, but I definitely think Patrick Queen could give you some athleticism, kind of inject some of this juice into this defense that's desperately needing right now. Well, I guess it's not desperately needing. You got a good pass rush. You got a really good secondary as well. But if you want a little bit more juice in the linebacking core here, I know you went and got Cody Barton in free agency, but he's about as vanilla as it comes when it comes to NFL starting linebackers. You want to put a little bit of spice in this room, go out and get Patrick Queen, who is an athletic freak, a former first-round pick. He really came into his own last year, and the Baltimore Ravens declined his fifth-year option, and they have Roquan Smith on the roster already, so they might be willing to give him up here. And the most I'd give him here, another fifth-round pick, okay? So I'm really not willing to trade anything first to fourth round kind of range. If I'm Martin Mayhew right now, I'm trying to find a deal here. And Patrick Queen, if Baltimore's like, hey, you can have Patrick Queen for a fifth-round pick, that's definitely something that I would consider to put some spice in the inside linebacker room here in the nation's capital. So now pick one of these guys to trade for, then bring to the nation's capital. You want Zach Ertz like me? Go ahead and go ZE down in the comments section. If you want Makai Becton to give Charles Leno a run for his money at left tackle, type MB. If you want Cesar Ruiz to play left tackle for the Commanders this year, type CR. And then if you want Patrick Queen to come in and be a starting linebacker for your Washington Commanders, type PQ down in the comments. That's going to be it for today's video, guys. Really do appreciate all the real ones that made it to the end of the video. If you're one of those real ones, do me a favor, go down to the comment section and type real one in all caps so I know all the real ones that made it to the end. Really do appreciate all the support. Without you guys, this channel wouldn't exist, so I just want to give a little shout out to all the people that made it to the end.